Thank you for joining us for another edition of JoySports World Cup Tales as we build up to Qatar 2022. Well, the Black Stars are looking forward to making massive impact in the next World Cup in Qatar, and the whole nation would have to rally behind them to achieve this. Now, you do know that with this show, we're just throwing back on the years and looking back at some of the highlights of what has characterized our participation over the three that we've been to. I'm talking about Germany in 2006, South Africa in 2010, and Brazil in 2014. Here with me today is a fine gentleman who has been key in handling the communication operation of the Ghana Football Association over years. In fact, he took up that role and made it a major one within the operations of the Ghana FA, and of course was part of the top 5 hierarchy in the Ghana FA who executed Ghana's participation in 2006 and 2010. Years on, he plays different roles as well, and currently is serving as an executive committee member, and also has a massive appeal when it comes to administration on the continental body. I'm talking about the Confederation of African Football. Dr. Randy Abbey is my guest. Good to see you again, Abbey.
Good to see you, bro.
Well, unfortunately, we can't get into why we have the Davi accolade.
Davi won.
Davi won. We can talk about that later on. But good to see you, Randy. You were key in executing Ghana's qualification from the administrative level and the operational level in 2006 and 2010. I want us to roll back. We want to do this in reverse. Let's start from 2010, which obviously has told a big story and has brought us the realization that we can go there and be part of the major subjects and the major topics. Okay. Away from what was done on the pitch, there were major highlights of that participation, including the visit to Madiba, Nelson Mandela's residence.
Yep.
Tell me about that. I'm very interested in that story.
Well, that's one of the biggest highlights, and not just my career as a football administrator, but as a person. Because if there's anybody you would want to meet in this world, it has to be Nelson Mandela. And so when we had been kicked out via the Suarez situation, and were informed that, look, Madiba would want to see us as a pride of Africa in that World Cup, I mean, we're elated. Everybody really wanted to be there. Even those who were not part of the delegation, when they heard that we were going to see Mandela, everybody wanted to. And the interesting thing is that that day there were 2 visits planned. One to Madiba himself, and the other to Mrs. Mandela, Winnie.
Wow.
Yes, so we did a double.
Wow.
So we went to Mandela and then went to Soweto to see Winnie. But the Mandela one was the biggest. And, I kept dreaming about it the previous night. It was in my dreams, my sleep. I mean, I was just looking forward to it. And I kept looking at my timepiece. Yeah. Couldn't wait. I'm sure that I was about one of the first to dress up and get close to the bus.
Wow.
For that trip to the place.
Interesting.
And yeah, we got the security really, really tight. So we had
the
to.
Houghton estate.
Yeah. We had to go there in batches. They also were managing him because he was a bit frail
at the time,
and he wasn't too well, so they had to manage. So we had to go in, I think, 5 or 6 at a time, and I just kept waiting. Nothing should happen to prevent me from getting in. And then eventually we got in. Here was the man. I was awestruck. I mean, I could now see Mandela in person.
Like how many years in your career you'd never really been awestruck like that, meeting him?
I mean, never. I have never in my life. I mean, never, ever, been that awestruck. And, I kept looking at the man even when we entered the living area. So we had to go behind him in the sofa to get to him, then exchange the greetings, and then I'll come sit with him to take the photographs.
Wow.
And it was something else. I'm sure that I was virtually shivering.
Yeah.
And then I got opportunity of sitting by him to take the picture And it was the highest point in my life and my career. I mean, spending that little time, with him, it was massive.
On hindsight, would you have wished that visit had probably come a little earlier?
No.
A little earlier, I mean in the tournament?
No.
Considering how much inspiration it gave all of you?
Well, yes, from an inspirational point of view, maybe, just maybe, you could have said that, or if you had seen us earlier, it could have motivated the team to, but we had all the motivation. I mean, the team that played against Uruguay was not a demotivated team. We had all the motivation. It was just, I think it was just an issue of luck. And probably, maybe, a bit of inexperience.
Okay.
Because sometimes when you have the nerves, high level, high octane, there's a certain level of calmness that you see players at the very highest level exhibit in games like that. I mean, you have a penalty between you and setting a record as far as Africa's participation in the World Cup is concerned. That's big, that's huge. You have an entire continent and perhaps an entire race, rooting for you. We had become Africa, not Ghana, at the World Cup, and everybody else. And even those who were not blacks or Africans, but also supporting the underdog and were also rooting for good football, were behind us. So you were representing maybe a third or more of the world. We really wanted to see this African team at the semis. And then you had an opportunity. You see, scoring a goal in open play is different from the penalty spot. It's a completely different thing. So, well, maybe if we had met him, but just maybe. I mean, it could have been different. But like I'm saying, the side wasn't a demotivated side. We did not lose because we lacked motivation or needed some more motivation, a bigger motivation. I just think that maybe a moment of nerves, just a moment of nerves.
We drew a lot of support for the Ghana flag, and we made waves. I visited, I was there in South Africa. After the tournament, I visited, and I met ladies who wanted Asamoah Gyan's phone number and all of that. Look, what does that experience from South Africa now tell us as a continent regarding our participation and what kind of mark we should leave on it?
Well, I think that it's just a demonstration of the confidence that our people have in our ability to do better than we've done. I mean, there are a lot of people who believe that, look, with the quality of footballers that this continent has produced, it's a shame that our best has been the quarterfinals. And that obviously, if you're speaking about countries that have been to the last 4 of the World Cup, an African country should be there, and it's long overdue. And so, I mean, the expectation, it just tells you the huge expectation that people have. And the expectation is not just from an emotive point of view, but it also has to do with the quality of the players that we have. If you look at international football on the globe today, many of the top players are players who come from Africa. If you look at the last AFCON, I mean, the quality of play and all that. And so there are a lot of people who have high expectations about African teams and our participation at the World Cup. And if you take a country like Ghana, I mean, up until 2006, Ghana was seen as the best African country never to have made it to the World Cup. It was unbelievable, and it was kind of strange that a country with the reputation that Ghana has in football had not been on the world stage. And that's how come, I mean, we went there in 2006, we did what we did, and from then on, you'd realize that anytime Ghana gets to a World Cup, the expectations are high. We took it a notch higher at 2010. Unfortunately, in 2014, it didn't work out. But if you look at the other African countries around, you look at Nigeria, you look at Senegal, you look at Cameroon, you would see that, I mean, there's a legitimate expectation that we ought to be doing better than we're doing now.
Match day Ghana-Uruguay. How did your day start? How did your day end?
Oh, you know, it normally starts with the previous day.
Sure.
So you have the last training session. You have the official press conference where I have to go with the coach and then a player. You know, so that's when it starts. That's when the international media, including the Ghanaian media, is there. All the questions, all the issues that are raised and all that. So from the press conference, then the night before, that's when the players themselves get into the team talk, their overnight prayer sessions and all those things. And then we also are getting closer to the technical team because you want to have a gist of what's going to happen, because you've seen a little at training. When you monitor the training, you can get a fair idea of how the coaches want to deploy and all that. We have our own discussions and analysis about what's going to happen. You know, at that level, everybody is a technical brain, you know. So we keep speaking to ourselves, you know, and then for those who are quite religious, they're speaking with their pastors and prophets and others, you know, in Akwanchire and, you know, what have you. You have people back home calling, wanting to find out
what's one of the weirdest, you know, Akwanchire, if you put it that way, you've ever heard?
Me, I hardly hear. You know, it's always reported.
Okay,
you know, party. Yes. I mean, I don't. I believe in the prophetic, but yeah. I don't. You know, my view about football is a bit different. You know, but you hear all manner of things. People have all manner of beliefs, and so you hear and see all manner of things. But I think that the space is big enough to accommodate. I mean, yes, all shades. You know. So it gets in there, and the difficult part is sleeping. You know, nights before games like that, you could be, I remember the Uruguay one, and you're just, you know, it's either you're setting a record or you're breaking a heart. And so you fall asleep, and then about 2-3 hours, and then it's like, hey, what's happening? You know, and then the whole thing comes up again, and you get up, and then you're checking what they're saying, especially in the Ghanaian media and all those things. That is morning. And match day mornings are when the breakfast table is almost empty.
Nobody wants to eat.
Nobody.
So Ghana, Uruguay, nobody ate.
I mean, a few people. But you find that's when the breakfast table is mostly empty.
I see.
I'm telling you, it's mostly empty. And then maybe before the game in the afternoon, soup and a little rice. You know, people are tense. People are relaxed, headphones, listening to music. Everybody's in a kind of
mode.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, it's tense, expensive. You know, people are meditating. People try to focus. Then the team is mentioned at the team talk. So we know the team sheet now. Then have to board the bus. You know, the situation in the bus is also different. You know, the Black Stars bus is a different thing. That's what sets us apart from many countries. So you're in there with Langabell.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you're in there with Langabell with the drums. And then you have a Samoajan there. You have all the others in there. The different songs. I mean, it got to a point, there's a popular song, Milo, in 2010. He even had to learn part of the chorus.
I see.
Yeah. Because it was something that was done on a daily basis. It's even something that is done from training on the bus. And it's unique. So it's like, if it were uni, you say the morale, you know. And that was unique. And it's done, we alight at the stadium, as we're alighting from the bus, it's continuing to the dressing room.
Wow.
And then you get into the dressing room, then you have a situation of another
calmness
and
reality check.
Yes. People now go take their jerseys, they start, you know, taping and strapping, and you know, that's when, I mean, it's time, you know. And then for me, I need to get out, go make sure that things are sorted and all that. I mean, you look at the players, and they sometimes, it's rather the players who come to us and say, oh, Charlie, don't worry.
I see.
You'll be fine. Oh, relax. Charlie, tension more, but your match more, but you relax.
I see.
You know, yeah. You know, there's sometimes, I mean, those days I always get close to Stephen. He was my best buddy.
I see.
You know, in the team, yes. I mean, Stephen and I are very close. You know, so I'll go to him and Charlie, Kadula, you know, Miniano. Oh, Kawari. Kawari.
I see.
You know, and then, of course, game time, you get into the field and then you need to watch the guys.
His, you know, pep talk ahead of games that you remember, you know, for one reason or the other? Stephen is said to be somebody who's very inspirational and very, you know.
Interestingly, Stephen doesn't speak a lot.
Okay, as a captain?
Yes, he doesn't speak a lot. He speaks, he doesn't speak a lot. He does a lot of one-on-one.
I see.
And I think Stephen's style was to create a council of elders.
Okay.
That was his style. So rather than be that individual captain, whatever, he created a council of elders that he led. And when they met, he would lead the process. When they have to meet us, he lets them do the talking.
So everybody was, so he made them feel involved.
Yes. Okay. So you invite Stephen for a meeting as captain. He says, no, I'm not coming alone. I'm coming with my guys.
I see.
So Stephen will come. You would find John Mensah. You would find Richard Kinson. You would find Sule. You find Michael Essien. You would find, in 2006, you would find Amwa. And then, I think in 2010, Asamoah.
Okay.
And then you come for the meeting and you start, and he takes a back seat. And he allows them to engage the leadership of the FA. That was his style.
I see.
Yeah, that was his style. And in 2006, interesting, it's the first time that the players had to deal with us on bonuses. I mean, that's a different story. And the following day, I was so upset with him. You know, because of our relationship, I thought I'd strike a deal with him. I'd assured my colleagues that it was okay. Yeah. And he had a big surprise for me. We got in there, he just took the back seat and allowed the current coach, Otuado.
Yeah.
And
Chipsa.
They led.
The calculator.
That was when I found out that Chipsa had studied accounting at the Kumasi Technical University. You know, so he had a calculator. And then Otuado had all the data from the African players who were playing in the other teams at the World Cup and what the financial arrangements were. So the boys were prepared. We were unprepared. That was in Scotland. Wow. Just before the 2006 World Cup.
But you throw back on all of this and see what happened in 2014 when the same issue, I mean, reared its head again, and this time has caused so much chaos.
You know, I didn't go for the 2014 World Cup.
Of course.
And you know that I'm somebody who, if I am not part of the delegation, I pay myself to go and watch the Black Stars everywhere. Everywhere. I mean, provided I have nothing doing. So, before the 2014 World Cup, I went to Holland to watch the friendly at my expense. I went to the States to watch the friendly with South Korea at my expense. Now, I would always ask, which hotel would the team stay at? And then I make a booking to stay at the same hotel. Now, in this case, I think the team was staying at Florida or Miami, one of them. No, I think it was Miami. It was Miami, yes, Miami. And then it was a 5-star hotel. So 2 days to the trip, I had gone to Maryland, and I was going to move from Maryland to Miami to watch the game. Then I was told that the hotel has changed. So why? That the players got there and they rejected the 5-star hotel and insisted that they wanted a 7-star hotel, St. Regis.
I see.
Yes. I see. And when we say a 5-star hotel in the States, It's a top notch hotel.
Good standard.
That was the one that is St. Regis, because a couple of them on their pre-season with their clubs have stayed at the St. Regis, and the FA agreed and moved them to Regis. So I also had to change my booking, to Regis, because I wanted to be in the same space. And I got there and I realized that it looks like there were some issues, So that plus so many other things, I said, look, this will be the end of my journey. So I didn't go to Brazil. So I came back, watched the first
I remember conversations with you, when I had returned from Brazil and the tournament was wearing on, you told me this story and told me about your discomfort with, what you saw.
Yeah.
So you were not surprised when the trouble erupted in the camp?
The extent to which it went was a bit surprising. I mean, we always deal with these money issues. They are not new. I was just telling you about what happened in Scotland, 2006, which was our first time. But the way it blew out, was so surprising for me. And no wonder the public uproar and the way that thing took away a lot of the love that the public had. And unfortunately, we didn't do well at the World Cup, and therefore everybody attributed our performance to what had happened, and you'd realize that it's taken us probably some another maybe 8 years to get under the recovery part. And even that, you would see that the love and the joy is even coming gradually,
Where
look, there are things with negotiations about bonuses and those things. Look, as there are very stormy sessions. Stephen is your friend. You can ask him. You can ask Mr. Fred Papo. You can ask Mr. Kwesi Nyantichi, Fred Krensel, Kofi Nsia, Mr. Wanyamicha. You can ask them. You can ask the Honorable Obi Amwa. They came here and the Honorable Papo Swankuma, 2006. Yeah. We did a negotiation for the first round. They came in there. So when we qualified to play in the second round, they had to be part of the negotiation. They will tell you what happened in that room in Germany.
You told me about it.
Yeah, So the way they spilled out with the videos and how things got into the public domain was a bit disturbing. Because you see, there are things that ought to be managed. If you've sat in a boardroom before, if people know what happens in boardrooms before they hear of decisions and all that, perhaps they will not even be interested in even wanting to know anything. But these things are contained, they are managed, they are communicated in a particular way. Because they're all part of the process. Negotiating and you're negotiating with the footballers. They are passionate about what they're doing. You also are passionate about what you're doing. So I think that what happened was preventable, but hey, it's happened already. The only thing we can do is to learn the relevant lessons and make sure that these things don't recur. That's a situation that even led to the setting up of a presidential commission. So that should even tell you how terrible things were.
In wrapping up this conversation, Randy, we have it ahead of us. First of all, what's the feeling you get putting the technical conversation together, putting the sentimental conversation together about our group and what we can do differently? And also, how do we approach these issues and how do we manage these issues with all the experiences from the three appearances on hindsight?
Well, I think that I'm not a part of the Black Stars Management Committee, but I've been part of a couple of meetings with the ministry where the issues of the package for the World Cup and others have been discussed. So I know that as far as the ministry and the GFA are concerned, there is a certain consensus like I said, I'm not part of the Black Stars Management Committee. So as I speak with you, I would not know the engagement with the players yet. But I would be sure that engagement will be made. They would have that engagement, and of course, we would have a certainty, because it appears that that's what we've been doing in recent times, so that you have that certainty even before we get into the camp for the competition. So I'm sure that by the time we are done with the September friendlies, there ought to be some clarity amongst all stakeholders, whether it's government through the ministry, the GFA, and the playing body, as to what exactly we would have as the package that should be done. On the technical side, Otto is extremely hardworking. If you've sat on a flight to Otto, either to the game from Ghana to wherever you're traveling to, or coming back after the game, this is somebody who spends all his time on the flight on his laptop or with a book, and it's just about tactics. And it's something that I have experienced 3-4 times.
With Otto?
Yes. And when you have a conversation with him, it's all about tactics. It's same with the technical advisor,
Chris Hutton.
Chris Hutton. Anytime you speak with him, it's just tactics, philosophy, team preparation, game preparation. The same with George. Same with Didi. You know, so you have a group that keeps working. They are monitoring all the time. They are speaking with the players. They are monitoring opponents. They are monitoring their own players. They are looking at how to play. And fortunately, they would have a little bit of time. They've had a little bit of time from when they took over caretaker to the World Cup to know the players. Fortunately, we have some new players coming in. They have these 2 games to also check them out. So I'm thinking that by the time, unfortunately, because we're having a Winter World Cup, the teams will not have that preparatory period that they normally have with the Summer World Cup. So probably we'll have a week or maximum 10 days to work with your players before the World Cup kicks off. But I'm confident that we would see something that we'll be happy about with the team.
Randy, thank you so much. And let's hope from a Ghanaian perspective that it works for our good.
Whichever way it goes, I am sure that we will be happy about our performance, whichever way it goes. I think that we will be able to see something that either makes us happy or gives us hope and confidence for the immediate future.
And that's purely from a technical point of view, not the prophetic, is it?
No, no, no. I'm not that gifted.
Well, seasoned, media consultant, broadcaster, entrepreneur, and of course, football administrator, Randy Abbey, executive council member of the Ghana FA, and once the PR manager or the communications director of the Ghana FA. Well, the tales continue, and of course, if you think you've heard stories, well, just wait till we bring you the next personality who gives us some of the things you probably may not have been exposed to when it comes to Ghana's participation in the FIFA World Cup. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks to the whole production team. I'll be back with another episode. And remember, this is the JoySports World Cup Tales. It's ahead of Qatar 2022. My name is Nathaniel Attoh, and I have love for sport.